In 1976, a school bus with 26 children and their driver disappeared. No one knew where they went, as if the earth had swallowed them. The whole world was in turmoil, and the parents of those children were going crazy, wondering, where are our children? They didn't know that their children were no longer above ground. The person behind this and the reason why he did all of this is beyond comprehension. Today's story will take us to Chowchilla, a city in California, USA. This city was small, its people were few, and it was very rare for a crime or anything bad to happen there. But as they say, evil can be anywhere. On the 15th of July 1976, at exactly 4 p.m., a bus driver named Ed Ray, 55 years old, picked up the kids to take each one home. The school he worked for was called Summer School, and Ed Ray had been working there for a long time. The people who knew him there used to say that he loved little kids, was always cheerful and active with them, and never came to work in a bad mood. He said it himself, anyone working in a place with little kids has no right to come to work in a bad mood and spread negative energy around them. Anyway, that evening he had just picked up the kids from an outing they had at a swimming pool. They were all energetic and happy because they had a good time. They got on the bus to go back to their homes, singing and having fun, as you know how kids' energy is. But they didn't know they were about to experience a real nightmare that would change their lives forever. At first, Ed Ray dropped off a little girl and her brother at their house. He stood there watching them until they went inside, then continued on his way to drop off the other kids. After that, he dropped off some more kids, and in the end, he had 26 children left on the bus, and he was the 27th. They were driving on an empty road in the middle of nowhere, still laughing and having fun. Suddenly, the driver saw in front of him a van, or something like a delivery truck, parked in a way that blocked the entire road. Ed thought to himself, maybe someone's car broke down, and they need help. He said, I'll just go to him, get off, and see if he needs any help. In that city, people used to help each other. He actually reached the van and was about to get out to see what was going on and why it was parked in that position, blocking the road. In an instant, 3 men came out of it, wearing masks. All 3 of them had guns and were pointing them at Ed. All the laughter and fun that was on the bus disappeared, and the kids fell silent, looking at those people, not knowing who they were or what they wanted. One of them went to the driver's window and said, "Now open the bus door, or I'll kill you." Ed didn't know what to do at that moment. He didn't want to say, "No, I won't open the door for you," but he knew that the slightest mistake would get him killed. And if he died, the kids would be left alone without any adult with them. In the end, he opened the door, and one of them went inside the bus, waving his gun and threatening them, saying, "I'll kill you all, and I'll kill your driver too." As soon as they heard this, they started screaming, crying, and were very scared. It's normal for them to be scared. The kids were still young, between 5 and 14 years old, and most of them were 8, 9, or 10 years old. The masked man turned to the driver and said, "Get up and go to the back of the bus." Ed got up and walked among the kids, trying to smile at them to reassure them. He was telling them quietly, "Everything will be fine, just don't be afraid." But the kids couldn't control their fear and were trembling. As soon as Ed went to the back of the bus, one of the kidnappers sat in his place, the driver's seat. The other one held the gun, pointing it at the kids so that if anyone did anything, he would shoot them. The third one went to the van that was blocking the road. All 3 of them started their engines and hit the road. And so, 26 children and their driver were kidnapped in less than 15 minutes. They took them about half an hour outside the city to get rid of the bus. They knew that the bus was yellow and large and would be easily spotted by people and the police when they started looking for the kids. The place they went to was like a dense forest, full of vegetation. They had already prepared another van there to transport the driver and the kids. As soon as they parked the bus very close to the van so that the kids could get out of the bus and directly into the van without even setting foot on the ground and leaving a trace. One by one, they entered the van. Of course, the kidnappers were pointing their guns at them. The slightest mistake, and they would shoot. The poor kids were crying silently. They didn't know who these people were or where they were going. The only thing they knew was that they were heading towards death. The van they had prepared there and the other van they used to block the road and kidnap them had been completely redone from the inside. The windows were painted black, and the inside of the van was all covered with wood. So when they entered and the door was closed, it would be pitch dark, and no one would see the other. Indeed, that's what happened. As soon as they loaded the kids and closed the door, it was so dark that not a single ray of light was let in. The children were separated. 13 children were put in one van, and the other 13 children and the driver were put in the other van. Ed was trying to reassure the kids with him, who were about to faint from crying and fear. He was telling them, "Don't be afraid, I'm here with you, and I won't let anyone hurt you." But deep down, he knew he was in big trouble and that these people who kidnapped them were very bad and had no mercy in their hearts. Since they were capable of doing all of this to innocent little kids, they were capable of doing anything bad. Anyway, after that, one of the kidnappers got on the bus and drove it deep into the bushes and trees so it wouldn't be visible at all. In the end, once they made sure that no one would be able to find the bus, 2 of them got into one van, and the other one got into the other van. They started driving to an unknown destination. They drove for hours and hours without stopping at all. The kids in the back didn't eat, drink, or go to the bathroom. Everything was closed, meaning even the oxygen was scarce inside. Keep in mind that we're talking about July, the peak of summer, so imagine the condition of those kids inside. Some of them started to suffocate. The kids who needed to go to the bathroom, Ed kept convincing them to relieve themselves in the corner of the van, but they didn't want to, probably out of embarrassment. But in the end, they couldn't hold it anymore and did what Ed told them. To make them feel a little better, he asked them, "How about we sing a song?" and started singing to them. But the kids were too scared and didn't know where they were going. Inside, it was dark, and no one could see the other. The kidnappers kept driving for 12 hours non-stop. They only stopped once to refuel and then continued driving. 12 hours, and the kids were without food, water, or a bathroom, and the oxygen was scarce. At the same time, as soon as they were kidnapped and didn't return home, their families started to panic. Dozens of phone calls flooded the school, asking, "Where are our children? Where is their driver?" The people working at the school didn't understand anything. Ed had never been late for work. He always picked up and dropped off the kids on time. At first, they thought maybe he had a flat tire somewhere, or maybe there was a problem with the bus. They made many assumptions, but no one expected that the bus, with all the people in it, had been kidnapped. The school principal tried to contact Ed on his home landline, but he didn't answer because he wasn't home. We're talking about the 70s, so there were no cell phones to call him and ask where he was. At that moment, they immediately called the police to search for the bus and the people in it. The police, at first, left no stone unturned in Chowchilla, searching for the bus. As we all know, a school bus is large and yellow, meaning it's visible even to a blind person, but they found nothing. However, around 7:30 p.m., about 3 hours after the kids and their driver disappeared, a pilot flying his helicopter, who was also searching, spotted something yellow and large among the bushes and trees. When he landed near it and went to it, he found that it was the bus everyone was looking for. Other police officers and the press arrived to photograph it. The bus was right there in front of them, but where were the kids and their driver? When the parents of those kids heard the news that the bus their kids were on was found in the middle of nowhere and the kids weren't there, they were shocked and even more terrified. They wondered who would take their children and what they might have done to them. When the police thoroughly searched the area where they found the bus, they found on the ground marks or tracks of large vehicle tires. They said that it was likely that the kidnapper or kidnappers who did all of this brought the kids there, loaded them into another bus or van. They also considered the possibility that this kidnapping was for ransom, meaning, give us money to get your children back. But this remained just a possibility, and until now, no one knew anything. The FBI joined the investigation, and 30 investigators came to Chowchilla because the case involved many children, making it a complex case. Now let's go back to the kidnappers and the kids. After 12 hours of driving, they left Chowchilla, of course. They arrived at a very large piece of land, similar to places where they mine for rocks and stones. That place was about 160 kilometers away from Chowchilla. Why did they drive for 12 hours to get there in the middle of the night when no one was around? Anyway, when they arrived, they stopped the vans, got off, opened the one where Ed was, and dragged him out from among the kids. They closed the door again. They wanted to control Ed first because he was the adult among them, so the other kids would be easier to handle and would listen to him. Ed was shocked and very scared, but he didn't say a word because he knew that if he provoked them even a little, they would shoot him without mercy, and the kids would be left alone. One of them pointed a gun at him and said, "Walk straight ahead and don't look left or right." Ed kept walking, and after a while, he found a large hole in front of him with a ladder in it. They told him to go down the ladder. When he went down, he entered a tunnel and ended up in a room with some mattresses. The kidnappers had buried a moving truck underground and made an entrance from the ceiling with a ladder so they could reach the inside. After Ed entered and they made sure he was under their control, they went back to the kids. They would open the door, grab one kid from among the others, with the gun still pointed at them. Before they went down the ladder, they were told to give their names, their parents' names, their addresses, and something from what they were wearing. Then they forced them to go down the ladder to the underground prison. They did this to all the other kids. Imagine the amount of terror the kids felt when they opened the door, grabbed one of them, and closed the door again. They didn't know what was happening to them or why they were taking them one by one. Most of them thought they would be killed one by one. When they opened the door to grab a boy or a girl, they would try to cling to something or to the other kids who were still there so they wouldn't be taken out, thinking they would be killed. Anyway, in the end, they took out all the kids and put them all in that underground prison. Once they were all together, they started looking around. There was a small light bulb that barely illuminated the place. There were some mattresses, a box that was supposed to be a toilet, and some water and food, enough for 4 people, not 27. As for the kidnappers, they took a heavy cover, covered the entrance, put 2 heavy batteries on top of it, and left a hose coming out from the outside, connected to a fan to circulate oxygen inside. But the fan was old and weak. After a short while, Ed and the kids inside the truck underground heard the sound of dirt falling on them. They all realized they were being buried alive. The place where they were buried was impossible for anyone to see and think that there were people underneath. They did it in a way that was not visible at all, and they knew exactly what they were doing. The next day, July 16, 1976, they started calling the police to demand money in exchange for the children. And not just a small amount of money. They wanted $5 million. $5 million at that time is equivalent to $25 million now. A huge amount. Anyway, they went to one of their houses to call the police from the landline and demand the ransom. But they found the line was busy. The whole world was turned upside down because of these kids. Everyone was making calls, families, relatives, friends, the press, everyone was calling. The situation was chaotic, and due to the high volume of calls, the line got blocked. The kidnappers tried to reach the police, but they couldn't. In the end, they gave up and said they had to find another way to demand the ransom. But they were very tired. They had been working all night and driving for 12 hours, so they must have been exhausted. One of them said, "Let's go sleep and rest now, and when we wake up, we'll find a solution to demand the ransom." That's what they did. They went to sleep and passed out because they were so tired. They didn't know that this nap would lead them straight into the trap. As for the kids and the driver, after a few hours inside the underground prison, some of them started to suffocate due to the lack of oxygen. The food ran out, and it wasn't enough for 27 people from the beginning. Even the box they put there as a toilet, the smell must have been unbearable. 12 hours passed, and they were still trapped. The kids started screaming and crying again, and Ed was trying to calm them down because the more they cried and moved, the more the oxygen decreased. Besides all these problems, they faced a bigger one. The roof of the truck started to collapse due to the weight of the dirt on top of it and the damage it had sustained. Imagine that at any moment, it could break, and all the dirt above would fall on them, burying them alive. And the kidnappers were still asleep, relaxing, and oblivious to everything. Ed, at one point, looked around and thought, "We're going to die here. We'll either suffocate because there's no oxygen, or the dirt will fall on us, and we'll be buried alive, or we'll die of hunger, or these people will kill us." But none of this happened because of one person who was with them in that prison, the hero of this whole story. If he hadn't been with them, they would have all died there, and no one would have known where they were. His name was Mike Marshall, and he was 14 years old at the time, the oldest kid in the group, after the driver, of course. The least we can say about this kid is that he's a real-life hero. Throughout this whole kidnapping operation, Mike was trying to help Ed and calm the children down so they wouldn't be too scared. They put him in the other van, where Ed wasn't, and he acted just like him. He tried to calm them down, telling them not to be afraid, and that no matter what happened, nothing would happen to them as long as he was there. When they put them in the underground prison, he was the one who distributed the food, sang to them, and played with the younger kids. He did the job of an adult, even though he was also scared to death. Anyway, after the roof of the truck started to collapse, Mike told Ed, "We're going to die here if we don't find a solution ourselves. The solution is to get out from the same place we came in." Ed said, "How are we going to do that?" "We're buried under the ground." Mike replied, "We have nothing to lose if we try. Just help me and leave everything to me." Ed said, "Let's assume you get out, and you find the kidnappers standing there. As soon as they see you, they'll shoot you." Mike replied, "We're dead either way. At least let's try." The first thing they did was gather all the mattresses, stacking them one on top of the other so they could climb on top of them and try to remove the cover that was blocking the entrance. Their problem was that the cover was very heavy on its own, and on top of it were 2 heavy batteries. Despite that, they kept trying to move it, even a little. In the end, they were able to move it slightly, which gave them hope that they could remove it completely. At first, they thought that as soon as they removed it, the dirt would fall on them from the entrance, making it easier for them to get out. But as they were moving it, they realized there was another box placed directly above them. After hours of struggling, they finally managed to remove it completely. The kids who were below were overjoyed, celebrating and cheering, thinking they would finally get out of this prison. But their joy didn't last long when Mike climbed up and found a wooden box above him with no way out. Ed gave up and told Mike, "There's no way for us to get out of here. Just come back down until those 3 come, and we'll see what they'll do with us." Mike refused, saying, "There must be a way to get out of here, and I won't rest until I find it, and we all get out." He said, since they put this wooden box here, it means they didn't put a thick layer of dirt on top of it because they knew it was just wood and could break. He started hitting the box everywhere, and at one point, he hit a spot where it sounded like there wasn't much dirt above it. He knew they could get out from there. Ed joined Mike, and they started working together to break that spot so they could get out. They had to do it quickly because they were running out of time, and they could suffocate at any moment. Mike started using a piece of wood they found inside to hit that spot, and after a few hours, they managed to make a small hole. As soon as the hole was made, Mike stuck his head out to see what was above. He saw the most beautiful view he had ever seen in his entire life. The sky and a little bit of light. It was the most beautiful oxygen he had ever breathed in his entire life. He started looking around and thought he heard the sound of a machine. He asked Mike if they should go towards the sound. The kids didn't want to go towards the sound because they were afraid the kidnappers might be there, and they would be taken back underground. In the end, they had no other choice and decided to follow the sound. When they got closer, they saw a building in the distance and started running towards it. Ed shouted, "We're from Chowchilla." The people in the building, who were aware of the kidnapping that had happened in Chowchilla, saw the young kids and realized they were the ones who had been kidnapped. They immediately called the police, and after a short while, the police arrived. Finally, all 26 kids and their driver were rescued from the hands of those sick people. They were immediately taken to the hospital to check if anyone was injured. Then they were given food and clothes. They were overjoyed. 4 hours passed while the police talked to them and questioned them about what happened. In the end, they brought a large bus to take them back to Chowchilla to their parents. Some of the kids refused to get on the bus, as if they were scared because the last time they got on a bus, they were buried alive. Those who refused to get on the bus were taken back in cars to Chowchilla. The parents of those kids were all waiting near the center, and as soon as they saw them, they started applauding and jumping for joy. Each one of them jumped on their son or daughter. They were overjoyed and very grateful that their children had returned safe and sound. If only all cases had a happy ending like this one. Now let's go back to those 3 crazy people. Who are they, and why did they do all of this? During all this time, while all of this was happening, they were still asleep. They didn't wake up until the next morning, July 17, 1976. When they woke up, they turned on the TV to watch the news. They saw that the kids who were supposed to be underground had all returned to their parents. They probably thought they were dreaming and would wake up any minute. They felt burned because they didn't even get to call the police and demand the ransom. They didn't even get to experience the feeling of control, of calling the police and telling them to give them $5 million to get the kids back. They didn't even get to the halfway point. It was as if they had wasted their time and effort on all of this. After the kids and the driver were rescued, the police now had to catch the perpetrators. They went to search for the place where they were buried and found it. They dug up everything and searched it thoroughly. They found that the truck had been buried there 6 months earlier, in November 1975. They started asking who owned the land and found that the owner was Frederick Woods, one of the wealthiest people in the area. This man owned many lands and businesses. He was very well off. They brought him in for questioning and found that he had no connection to the kidnapping. Why would he kidnap young children when he had so much money? Frederick had a 24-year-old son named Fred. The police wanted to call him in for questioning too, but they couldn't find him. They searched everywhere for him, but he had disappeared. They started questioning the people and workers on the land if they had ever seen anyone digging in that area. One of them said, "Yes, I saw 3 people digging in that area one day, and one of them was the owner's son." Just to let you know, this land was huge, over 100 hectares, and the place where the kidnappers were digging was very far from where the workers were. When the police heard all of this, they started to suspect him because since he ran away, and his father said he was just around, plus the worker who saw him digging in that area, he was likely one of the people involved in the kidnapping. Besides, it was his father's land. He could do whatever he wanted on it, and he could dig that huge hole. The police went back to his father and asked him where his son might have gone. He told them his son didn't have many acquaintances he could go to, but he had 2 best friends he spent a lot of time with. The police went to look for these 2 friends, James Schoenfeld, 24, and his younger brother, Richard Schoenfeld, 22. They just wanted to ask them about Fred, but they couldn't find them either. By the way, these 2 brothers were also from a well-off family and grew up in luxury. The police now realized that these were the 3 kidnappers, and all 3 of them had disappeared, meaning they were 100% the perpetrators. They immediately launched a massive search for these 3, as they were now the prime suspects in this whole mess. One of them, Richard, was found by his father, who brought him to the police station and handed him over. The others were also quickly found. One of them was coming to turn himself in, and the other, the mastermind, Fred, was found trying to escape on a private plane. Now, wait a minute. These 3 guys were very well off and grew up in luxury. Why did they do this for money when they already had money? Indeed, they grew up in a well-off family and lacked nothing. But after college, they didn't do anything with their lives. Their parents told them that if they didn't do anything, they wouldn't give them a single penny. Since they were just sleeping and hanging around, their parents cut them off. Instead of rolling up their sleeves and working, they decided to start stealing. At first, they only stole cars, but they were quickly caught. Their parents bailed them out and told them that no matter what they did, they would always get them out. That's when they started looking for a way to make a lot of money with minimal effort. Since they watched movies about kidnapping, that was the idea that came to their minds. Kidnap someone and demand a ransom. One of them suggested, "Why don't we kidnap many children and demand a lot of money for each one?" This was the stupid idea they decided to implement. If they wanted to become wealthy like their parents quickly, they would kidnap children because they are the most precious thing to their parents, who would pay any price for them. They started planning this for a year. They realized that to kidnap many children, they had to kidnap an entire bus with everyone in it, the driver and the kids. When they were caught, the police searched their houses. In Fred's house, they found papers where they had written their plan, and even a paper with the names and addresses of the kids. This was enough evidence to put them in prison for good. Now for the sentencing. The court sentenced them to life in prison without the possibility of parole, meaning they would spend their entire lives there. However, later on, their sentences were changed, and they were given the possibility of parole. Richard, who entered prison at 22, was released in 2012 at 58. His older brother, who entered at 24, was released in 2015 at 63. As for the mastermind, Fred, who entered at 24, He wasn't released until 2022, when he was 70. They were living comfortably, and one day they got a crazy idea and ruined their lives and the lives of those kids. After being buried alive, many of them were completely changed. Some grew up addicted to drugs, some became mentally ill, and to this day, they don't want to talk about what happened that day. All of them, even now that they are older, still suffer from bad dreams and nightmares. However, some grew up normally, like Mike, who saved them from that hole, and some other kids. Later, they recounted their story in a documentary called 48 Hours. If you want to watch it, just search for 48 Hours Chowchilla. As for driver Ed, he passed away in 2012 at 91. A large park in California was named after him, Ed Ray Park. That was the story for today. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Don't forget to support me with a like, and as usual, I'll see you in a new story. Take care.